It had been a long day. The gray clouds loomed overhead as I settled into my cozy living room with a cup of tea. My little pug Momo was nestled beside me, his tiny snores a familiar and comforting backdrop to my evening reading. The first few drops of rain tapped gently against the windows. Something was soothing about a stormy night, the world outside cloaked in rain while I was cocooned in warmth. Momo, however, suddenly stirred. He hopped off the couch and padded over to the front door, where he sat alert and attentive. It was odd. Usually, after our evening walk, he'd be down for the night, content to snuggle beside me. I watched him curiously, trying to discern what had caught his attention, but there was nothing, no sounds, no movement, just the increasing thrum of rain. "Momo," I called, but he didn't budge. Instead, he sat facing the door as if waiting for someone to enter. I set my tea down and went over to him. "What's gotten into you, silly?" I whispered, nuzzling his soft fur. But as I settled back onto the couch, he grew restless, wriggling out of my embrace to return to the door. Curiosity gnawed at me. I approached the door, Momo's tiny form a sentinel in the dim light. Tentatively, I reached for the handle, pulling it open just a crack, ready to grab Momo if he dashed it. But he didn't. Instead, he just sat there, gazing upwards as if someone was standing on the other side of the threshold. I opened the door wider, peering out into the rain-soaked night. There was no one, just the quiet street, slick with rain and the distant murmur of the storm. The cold air seeped in, raising goosebumps on my skin. Momo's behavior, paired with the empty expanse of the wet night, sent a shiver down my spine. Closing the door, I tried to dismiss the unease bubbling within me. Perhaps he'd heard a distant sound, something my human ears missed. Still, the look in Momo's eyes, that unyielding stare toward the unseen, stayed with me. Hours ticked by, the rain a steady cadence outside. I tried to immerse myself in a movie, but Momo's persistent, distant behavior drew my attention. He'd occasionally move, but only to adjust his position, always maintaining his gaze at the door. A sudden knock interrupted my thoughts, causing my heart to leap 3 deliberate knocks. I froze, waiting, listening. The knock wasn't repeated, replaced instead by the deafening silence of the night, save for the rain outside. Momo's behavior now made a terrifying sense. Someone or something had been outside, watching, waiting. With trepidation, I approached the door again. Swallowing my fear, I flung it open once more. There was nothing but the cold, wet night greeting me. But then I noticed something chilling despite the overhang that shielded my porch from the rain. The wooden boards were wet, as if someone had stood there for a while, soaking them. I hastily locked the door and decided to retreat to the safety of my room upstairs. Momo seemed more agitated now. I tried to carry him, but he resisted, his small claws digging into the carpet, his gaze fixed on the front door. Once in my room, I locked the door behind me, placing a chair as an added barrier. But instead of calming down, Momo became even more frantic. He began to scratch and claw at the door, his whines piercing the otherwise silent night. Every ounce of me wanted to stay put, but seeing him like this, sensing his desperation, I couldn't. I removed the barricade and opened the door, Momo rushing ahead of me down the stairs. I followed closely behind, my heart pounding, only to stop dead in my tracks at the foot of the staircase. The front door stood wide open, letting in the cold night air. Panicking, I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. While on the line, I cautiously ventured through the rooms, searching for any signs of an intruder. But there was nothing. Momo, on the other hand, sat once more facing the open door, his demeanor now calm, as if he'd accomplished what he'd set out to do. The police arrived shortly after, conducting a thorough search inside and out. but found no evidence of anyone. They advised me to stay vigilant and parked a patrol car outside my house for the remainder of the night. Despite the police's presence, I couldn't shake off the unease. The open door, Momo's behavior, the wet porch, all of it formed a jigsaw puzzle with missing pieces. I never found out who had been at my door or why it was mysteriously open, but the events of that rainy night remained etched in my memory, a chilling reminder of the unknown and the inexplicable things that can sometimes invade our otherwise mundane lives. The rain pattered against the windows with comforting regularity. I was nestled comfortably on my couch, lost in a book, eagerly awaiting my friend Lena. It had been weeks since we'd seen each other, and a cozy evening with movies, snacks, and chats was just what I needed. Every so often, I'd glance at the clock, expecting Lena to arrive soon. We planned to start our movie marathon by 11:00, and it was unlike her to be late. The first ring of the doorbell came promptly at 11. Smiling, assuming it was Lena, I called out, "Doors open. Come on in." But no response came. I waited a moment before rising from my couch, thinking maybe she had her hands full. Peering through the peephole, I was met with an empty porch. The only movement was from the rain, creating transient rivulets on my doorstep. I dialed Lena's number, figuring she might be pulling one of her pranks. "Hey, why'd you ring and not come in?" Lena's voice crackled through, mixed with the sound of rain hitting her car roof. "I'm still on the way. Traffic's terrible with this rain. Should be there in another 20. A shiver ran down my spine. If it wasn't Lena who rang the doorbell, I double-checked my locks and returned to my couch, trying to shake off the unease. The night's ambience shifted. The rain that once seemed cozy now felt isolating, drowning out the rest of the world. Every little creak of the house made me jumpy. I tried to distract myself by picking a movie, but the thought of an uninvited visitor kept gnawing at me. Then the doorbell rang again. My heart raced. The rational part of me kept thinking there was a logical explanation, maybe a neighbor or a lost delivery guy. Yet, a growing dread told me otherwise. I approached the door more cautiously this time, looking out to find no one once again. Growing more anxious, I texted Lena, "Hurry up, something's off tonight." Her reply came instantly. 10 minutes, lock everything up. I thoroughly checked the house, ensuring all windows were locked and the back door was bolted. By the kitchen window, I noticed a child's toy, a small weathered doll lying outside. It wasn't there before. My heart thudded loudly. I had no children, and neither did my immediate neighbors. Hoping to distract myself, I turned on the music. A soft tune played, filling the room. The music was a stark contrast to the stormy night outside, a fleeting sense of normalcy. And then I heard it faintly. Between the notes of the song, a child's laughter echoed, chilling me to the bone. I turned the music off. Silence. Then the doorbell chimed again. Resisting the urge to hide, I went to the door one more time, peering through the peephole. Nothing. But as I backed away, a cold draft hit me. It was coming from the window next to the door. It was open just a crack. I was certain I had locked it earlier. Hurriedly, I shut it tight. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Lena. Pulling up now. Relief washed over me. But then, a loud knock echoed through the house, followed by the distinct sound of the doorbell. Without thinking, I flung the door open, expecting to see Lena's familiar face. But the porch was empty. The only trace of anyone being there was a set of wet footprints leading away. From behind me, the door creaked. I turned to see Lena, umbrella in hand, stepping inside, her face confused. "Why is the back door open?" We both jumped as the doorbell rang again. Again, Lena, her face paling, whispered, "That wasn't me." I quickly pulled Lena inside, locking the door behind her. As she set down her things, I recounted the evening's events. Her eyes grew wide with disbelief, then concern. "Do you think someone's playing a prank on us?" she whispered. "I don't know," I admitted, glancing nervously around. It felt sinister, and that doll outside, the laughter, it's all too eerie. We decided to stay in the living room, keeping the lights on and staying alert to any sounds. We spoke in hushed tones, jumping at even the smallest noise. Every time we thought we heard footsteps or a faint chime, we'd clutch each other, our gazes darting to the door. But as the hours wore on, the torrential rain began to wane, turning into a gentle drizzle before finally ceasing. The oppressive atmosphere in the house seemed to lift with it, replaced by an uncanny stillness. And then, as dawn approached, breaking the veil of darkness with its soft hues, we realized that the doorbell hadn't rung again since Lena's arrival. We have yet to find out what caused the events of that night. Perhaps it was just a cruel prank or a confluence of strange coincidences. It had been an unusually rainy summer, where the atmosphere became thick with tension and anticipation. The incessant rain was irritating, leaving me stuck indoors more often than not. One particularly stormy night, I settled into my reading nook with a book, attempting to enjoy the pattering of rain against the windows. The house was silent, except for the rhythmic drumming of the rain. An hour or so passed when I heard another sound, a soft squelching noise, like wet shoes on a tile floor. I frowned, straining my ears. Maybe it was just the rain playing tricks on my mind. But then I heard it again, louder and clearer. Leaving my nook, I followed the sound. It led me to the hallway, and there, to my disbelief, were wet footprints. They seemed to start from the front door, leading into the house, and then just stopped halfway down the hall. A chill ran down my spine. I lived alone, and the front door was locked. There was no logical explanation for the footprints. I cautiously approached the front door, half expecting it to swing open, revealing some menacing figure, but it remained firmly shut, locked from the inside. I tried to shake off the unease, telling myself that there had to be an explanation. Perhaps there was a leak, or maybe I had come in earlier and not noticed my wet shoes. But deep inside, I knew that wasn't the case. The footprints were too distinct, too purposeful. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something had been in the house. With each passing moment, the sense of unease grew. Every shadow became a lurking figure. Every creak of the old wooden floors sounded like footsteps. Deciding I wouldn't get any peace of mind without a thorough check, I began to search the house. In each room I entered, I'd quickly turn on the lights, expecting to find some intruder hiding. But each room was empty, and the footprints remained the only evidence of the night's mystery. I wiped them away, trying to erase the growing dread that had taken root in my mind. I double-checked all the doors and windows, ensuring everything was locked. I tried to return to my book, but every noise seemed amplified. The storm outside raged on, and I felt trapped, caught in a web of my own making. My imagination ran wild, picturing shadowy figures lurking just outside my vision, always just out of sight. Eventually, exhaustion took over, and I decided to head to bed. I left a few lights on for comfort and tried to reassure myself the footprints were gone, the doors were locked, and there was no one else in the house. Sleep came surprisingly easily, but it was a restless one filled with dreams of shadowy figures and echoing footsteps. I awoke to the sound of the storm still howling outside, dizzy and disoriented. Glancing at the clock, it was just past 3:00 a.m. Then I heard the soft, unmistakable squelch of wet footsteps. I froze, holding my breath. The footsteps seemed to be coming closer, moving down the hallway towards my bedroom. Panic gripped me. I looked around for something, anything, to defend myself with. The footsteps stopped right outside my bedroom door. I could hear the soft drip of water and the occasional squelch as whatever was outside shifted its weight. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. I waited, every muscle tensed, ready for the door to burst open. But it never did. The silence returned, broken only by the sound of the rain outside. I don't know how long I sat there, paralyzed by fear. It felt like hours when dawn finally broke, and the room was bathed in soft light. I finally found the courage to move. The house was as I had left it, no signs of forced entry. But the wet footprints were back, leading from the front door down the hallway, stopping just outside my bedroom door. I moved out of that house shortly after. The memories of that night, the unexplained footprints, and the feeling of being watched haunted me long after I left.